Why? Why? What for? Why did they die? Were they responsible for something bad or the cause of it? Have they found the solution to the problem? Because when one loses a loved one for a noble cause, or for the good of society, or righting one of the many problems that exist, then in your heart you have the tranquility that at least it was for a reason. But their deaths were just pointless. That day, like I say, I was going to take them shopping at the big hypercore. But by chance, on my way to pick them up, I came across a person who had had a motorbike accident. Out of humanity, I stopped, picked him up, and took him to the nearest hospital. While I was waiting, a doctor came up to me and asked, "Are you a member of the family?" "No, not me. I just picked him up." After that, I went to the shop where my wife and daughters should have been, because it was time to open up. I was greatly surprised to find nobody there. Neither my wife nor my daughters were there. I asked the shop assistant if my wife had come to open up, but the assistant replied, "No, she has the keys." At that time, I thought their absence was due to the enormous traffic jam caused by the terrorist attack. To begin with, I did not know where the explosion had taken place. The news was very confused. I waited, but after about an hour, I got in my car and went to the area surrounding the hypercore. All I could see was smoke. I rang home, but there was nobody there. Then I began to think the worst. And undoubtedly it was true. That was where my wife and daughters were.
This family was massacred in the car park of the Hypercore in Barcelona on the 19th of June 1987. They form part of the hundreds of victims assassinated by ETA, to the horror of millions of Spaniards. The ETA terrorists have used assassination, kidnapping, extortion and threats as persuasion and blackmail to Spanish society, a society that has fought very hard for the conquest of liberty and peace. But the road to peace hasn't been easy. Spain has managed to consolidate a democracy that has been recognized by Europe, although we still are victims of senseless attitudes. It is a battle of the majority against ETA fanatics. As with all terrorist groups, ETA has had to develop and manipulate a series of political arguments to invent a war against a whole country. The system of their methods is based on fascist postulates, violence instead of dialogue, threats against reason, and of course, a total lack of respect for democracy. It was in Bilbao in the summer of 1959 when Spain heard about ETA. Its founders were a group of dissident university radicals belonging to the group Ekin, which was born in 1952 to fight against the passivity and conformity of the nationalists against a fascist state. In this way, ETA hold up as absolute non-negotiable principles, independence, anti-Spanish policy, and ethnicism. But this dictatorship of terror and the bullet in the back of the head needed a social disguise, which, if well manipulated, could be very fruitful. These are the people who surround ETA, the other terrorists. This armed group has made use of the benefits of democracy through Herri Batasuna, who have been acting in the political arena of the Basque Country as a link for the transmission of ETA's ideology. This political apparatus has been hiding behind different sets of initials, but they all have the same aim. The last formation was Batasuna.
One of the greatest insults we victims of terrorism have to suffer day after day is having to see Josu Ternera, one of the most important terrorists, one of the terrorists who took part in the horrible bombing of Hypercore in Barcelona, as a member of the Commission for Human Rights. I insist that for the victims, one of the greatest insults is to see a man, a terrorist, in the government, defending something that he denied to our loved ones.
no pudieron tener.
Fortunately, Judge Baltasar Garzón dealt with that situation. Since then, the judicial persecution of the political wing of ETA has been ceaseless. The latest judicial decision was to illegalize Batasuna, the political arm of ETA, as this new formation was deemed to be the successor of Eri Batasuna, which had been included in a list of terrorist organizations that was drawn up by different international organizations. In any case, the people of violence are only a small percentage of Basque society.
The techniques usually used by ETA to terrorize people or to stop them from talking usually range from the crosshair sites painted on the wall, which are most often used to frighten counselors, young counselors, counselors from the different villages, or the letters sent to businessmen asking them to pay the revolutionary tax, or the letters saying that they are going to get you, or your business, or your family because they haven't received their money, because you haven't paid up. Even a phone call can also be one of the methods that they use. And the truth is that it's difficult, very difficult. In fact, that's why you begin to see people leaving the Basque Country every day, because you put up with it and put up with it, and you try to stick with it. And in the end you can last 1, 2, 3, 4 years. But finally you leave, for yourself, for your family, especially for your children. You end up leaving. Sometimes the day-to-day life in the Basque Country can be really hard.
Pleno tumultuoso anoche en el ayuntamiento de Zestoa, el pueblo natal de José María Corta. Familiares del empresario guipuzcoano asesinado el martes por ETA increpan al alcalde de Herri Batasuna por negarse a condenar el atentado.
Eskuteko, ez dula zirkoi nahi. Nea nahi ez zala politikoa, langile bat bakarrikan. Ni Dios me va a sacar, arrogoiko zerdian zemi anai ez zigateko. Bainoena gola gehalko. Ni pa Dios. Ta gauz bat ez desioit, Sekula santan noain non situazioan egu ezotia, Bestela prauko zer dan. Bestela prauko zer dan. Hilda baino kerro, Hilda baino kerro.
When a person stands up against ETA or against terrorism in the Basque Country, what simply happens is that everybody who does not have nationalist feelings suddenly feels threatened.
The death ritual begins with a list. Information is collected in search of easy victims. It is usually collected by information operatives or individuals within the ETA environment, such as a neighbor or a workmate. After this, the leaders decide who should die. It is as simple as that. Underline a name and pass on the decision. The cynicism of ETA is boundless. In this war, it considers its enemies to be the Guardia Civil, the police and the military, also judges politicians and journalists. But in the end, ETA kills indiscriminately, without pity. We are all in their sights.
When that day arrives, you say to yourself, now it's my turn. I heard the bomb go off X meters away from my house, and I knew that some of my friends had fallen that morning. When you hear a knock at the door and you open and see your husband's boss, then you realize that the explosion this morning was for you. And that's when, at that moment, that you wonder what the future's going to be.
ETA has killed 25 children and left more than 60 badly injured. The child survivors of ETA's terror have had to learn an unthinkable lesson: how to reconstruct a whole life when one has only just started to live.
It was hard, because I had to learn how to walk. I had to learn how to walk with an artificial limb, and to be with a physiotherapist. And I tried not to miss school. I missed as little as possible. When you're about to lose your life, that is when you most value it. I'm grateful to my mother who came to the hospital and said to me, Irene, this is what we have and we must continue onwards. I don't think we can ever understand terrorism.